Early bubble time, Dominic Steele. Good morning, it's the 28th of December, the public holidays are over. Back at my desk this morning and looking at chapter 4 of Chris Watkin's book, and he has this next chapter called Sin and Society. And Watkin's big thesis in this chapter is that Christians possess a fabulous tool for cultural analysis and engagement that we so often fail to use. A great resource that can help develop winsome, penetrating and fresh analysis of cultural trends, as well as distinctive constructive contributions to today's social and intellectual debates. And he's talking about the biblical doctrines of sin and judgment. He says a full-bodied, unadulterated, Bible-based understanding of sin and judgment provides for a distinctively Christian approach to social critique, community politics, art, culture. And the chapter headings, there's just two big ones: sin and cultural engagement, and what happens in Genesis 3. The end of chapter questions: what are the main reasons why the Bible's account of sin is one of the great overlooked resources for cultural engagement? Making more of sin is good for society? How do thinkers like Marx, Freud and Nietzsche develop the theme that human beings suppress the truth by their wickedness? And what is the Bible's take on the logic of victims, oppressors and liberators? Now, back to his thesis. He says the absence of a sustained emphasis on sin and judgment in Christian cultural engagement is at least a little odd, and at most a heinous omission that leaves Christian cultural theory limping and unbalanced. Now, that is a challenge to us as preachers. It's a challenge to the apologetic institutes. It's a challenge to all of us, really, and I love it. And I'm looking forward to having a rigorous discussion about this with Chris Watkin. We've got an interview scheduled. We won't deal with it really in our first interview next week, but I will get back to him, get him back on and tease this out, because it's just so stimulating a thought. He says Christians make two mistakes. On the one hand, springing from a desire to be culturally relevant, we nudge away the uncomfortable ideas of sin and judgment to the sidelines, and I can see that temptation. But on the other hand, we think we've got to hold fast, and we think to be biblically faithful we must condemn and denunciate. But he says don't go either way, really. He's saying the recognition of a presence of sin and judgment is going to strengthen and humanize the society, to promote democracy, to promote equality, to promote the good of life, human dignity, hope, care for the environment. And so he says to make more of sin is good for the society. Now, I'm sure he's right, and that's such a helpful insight. What happens in Genesis 3, that's his next big heading. Watkin describes Satan's pitch to Eve as the origin of what's come to be called the noble lie, a falsehood told by an individual group in power with the aim of manipulating those under their power into doing what they otherwise would not do, often with the veneer of a noble purpose. He notes something similar in Book 3 of Plato's The Republic. Plato's lie is told with the intent of maintaining order in the Republic, and like Satan's lie, it's told by the powerful to enforce their will while at the same time pretending that they're altruistically acting in the best interests of their subjects. And the noble lie runs down to our day with the modern practices of dishonest marketing and political propaganda. We get to the section Sin, Society and Social Theory. Watkin quotes Paul in Romans 1 that human beings by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. And then he says the idea that human beings are not simply ignorant of the truth but actively suppress it has multiple echoes in modern cultural theory. He quotes Westphal, who says it's so fundamental to the thought of Marx, Freud and Nietzsche that he calls them the great modern theologians of original sin. And at that point I was wishing that I'd read Chris Watkin or Westphal before I preached on Romans 1 in the second term this year. He has examples of how Freud, Marx and Nietzsche do this. Let me take you to Nietzsche. For Nietzsche, the whole system, I'm quoting Watkin, the whole system of Western Judeo-Christian morality is a sham, masquerading as an ethic of love and benevolence. Our morals are, he insists, a slave morality designed as a grand justification of weakness and defeat by those who are themselves weak and defeated, the epitome of whom is Jesus hanging on the cross. It is a morality born of jealousy and resentment, designed to justify weak lambs and to condemn strong birds of prey. That's niche. Let me take you to... Well, I'm going to move forward in the chapter and move forward in the logic to this quote from C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis, in the essay talking about bicycles, his account has 4 stages, moving from the unenchanted age, where the child has no particular awareness of bicycles as anything but background objects, through to the enchanted age, when bicycles are seen as unadulteratedly magnificent objects of freedom and desire, and the disenchanted age, bicycles become nothing more than a tiresome bore, to the re-enchanted age, bicycles are finally appreciated for their for what they offer, but not considered life's crowning glory. The 4 ages do not only describe our changing attitudes towards bicycles, but of course nearly everything. And Lewis's re-enchanted age is Ricoeur's second naivety. He says if we fail to take into account the biblical implotment of suspicion, then our tune will only ever be the jarring and predictable monotony of cynical critique, and it will lead to what Westphal calls a spiritual bulimia, though it helps purge us of putrid waste that has been deprived of whatever nourishment it may once have had. It also satisfies no spiritual hunger and guarantees we remain malnourished as well. It becomes a kind of explaining away. I just want to go to the last quote that I'm going to give you from this chapter, and this is one where Bonhoeffer, writing from prison, this is basically Watkin's conclusion, writing from prison, Bonhoeffer, locked up by a Nazi regime responsible for the concentration camps in a world war, the Nazi regime which is responsible for the concentration camps in World War, so Bonhoeffer, locked up by them, can write the remarkable words, "Nothing that we despise in the other man is entirely absent from ourselves." If there's any Christian on whom lips those words do not sound glib or cheap, surely it's Bonhoeffer's. There's no one who does good, not even one, warns the psalmist, a fact simply attested by a parade of illustrious biblical figures. One by one, the great heroes of the Bible have their flaws pointed out explicitly. Abraham's a coward who betrays his wife. Moses is presumptive in striking the rock. David is an adulterer and manipulator. Peter is impulsive. Paul kills Christians for a living and calls himself the greatest of sinners. There's only one exception to this: Jesus Christ. Well, that's Sin and Society from Chris Watkin, and I look forward to your company on Daily Bible Time tomorrow, when we'll turn to Watkin's next chapter, Sin and Autonomy, and I'm really looking forward to that. See you tomorrow. God bless.